School is in session. Actually, it has nothing to do with this video other than just being my notes. Hey guys, Sam here. Welcome back to Samcraft. Welcome to the next video of me building my 20-foot by 32-foot workshop. In today's video, I'm going to start framing some walls. To kickstart this, I want to do a little bit of an overlay so I don't bore you to death, but I also want to do a little bit of show and tell as well so that you can kind of see what my thought process, what kind of work I've done to prepare for this, and hopefully the things I've put in place to mitigate human error, Sam messing up stuff, to get this right, maybe the first time. So as you're seeing here, I designed and built my workshop completely in a program called SketchUp. It's a very popular, free to use CAD program. It's one that I've used a lot for a lot of building projects just to kind of get a rough idea, check my measurements, and go through the process digitally before I actually build it in person. When you frame a wall, it is a very customized thing you're building. You've got to take into account your space, your lumber you're using, your joints, then your wall penetrations, things such as doors, windows, the roof structure above, whether or not you have interior walls, and everything of the sort. I have 3 windows planned for my workshop, and they are going to go on this one long wall, which faces directly south. It also faces our garden and the prettier view of our property. I'm going to have 3 solid walls, otherwise the one that faces my workshop, the one that faces our carport, and this end wall. They're all going to be solid. No windows at all in those, so that I have the options to use for tool storage, wall shelves, place my lasers and stuff like that. And I just don't have too many windows that will fight me from a utilizing the wall standpoint, and also, since I do a lot of video work, have sunlight coming in to really just fight me all the time. After designing my shop in SketchUp, I then took pictures and I printed off each individual wall section. So this here, I've got it written, this is my north door wall. So my north side of the shop, the door wall. This shows me all of my stud placements, my bottom plates, my door headers, my king stud, jack stud, small cripple studs, my top plate, everything right here printed out with dimensions. This is what I'm going to use as my blueprints to build. What I've done is go through and chunked up into different sections the wall panel sections that I'm going to build, and each page is an individual wall to build. The first wall that I'm going to build is hands down the easiest one of this project. It is a simple 8-foot wide wall with no doors, no windows, simple vertical studs. It consists of an 8-foot top plate, bottom plate, and 7 studs. That's it. As far as building the wall, here are the steps I'm taking. First and foremost, I am measuring the actual length of my top and bottom plates, my 2x4s. I want to make sure they are exactly 8 feet long. My next step is to take my tape measure, measure out, and mark for my stud locations on that 16-inch on-center spacing. With my top and bottom plate now marked for my stud locations, it's as simple as separating the two. Leave your bottom plate close to you, put that top plate out there however tall your wall is, then go ahead and start bringing over your wall studs, lining them up, and I prefer to nail and attach my bottom plate first, usually because with a structure like this, I'm building the wall laying flat on top of the floor, and it's easier just to reach the stuff at the bottom, and then I'll get on top of the floor and nail the top plate into position. Each wall stud gets a minimum of 2 nails or 2 screws, and you want those to be at least 3 inches long for your standard 2x4 framing material. If we solely go by the number of wall panels to build and the number that is completed, I'm 10% of the way done framing my workshop. But I did start with the absolute easiest wall first, so that's not exactly correct. Just one way of showing you how you can always work statistics to be in your favor. Okay guys, our 8-foot wall is done. That was pretty easy, right? Yeah, pretty basic. Nothing like rocket science here. It's pretty, rinse and repeat. Biggest thing you got to worry about, make sure you get your measurements lined up. And that's why you always want to put your top and bottom plate together, pull your tape, and mark them at the same time. That's probably the biggest place, or one of the only places, you can kind of get things wonky. With our 8-foot wall done, let's go ahead and rinse and repeat. I have a 12-foot wide wall to do. I'm gonna go ahead and do the exact same thing. We'll kind of just hit it all at once, speed it up. I don't think you guys need a walkthrough on this one. Just kind of sit back, see if you can remember the steps. Make sure I follow them as I teach them. That sometimes is a problem. But otherwise, let's get this one framed out. And then I want to show you one thing that's different, but very much required when framing up structures. And that's called a California corner. We're here at the end of the wall, and this right here is the California corner. So we have our normal wall stud, nothing different here. But now we have another stud. We lay flat, we put it on the face that faces the inside of the building, and we're gonna butt it up just like that. The reason you put this here is to allow you to have an inside attachment point for your wall covering. Once this is set up in place, you got your other wall here. If you didn't put this here, you would have an empty space, nothing to attach to. You may also see some people just say they double up their wall studs and do that. Or they add a spacer and put another one here, making it triple wide. The problem with that, if you have a triple wide, so you still have it sticking out from your wall, I could attach my drywall or whatever to the inside on this one. I've created a cold well, or an area where I cannot insulate, that's going to allow cold air or hot air to penetrate my building. That's not good for energy efficiencies. So by laying this down flat, I still get the same benefit inside my building, but I have this gap here that when I go to insulate, since this is the exterior wall, it allows me to insulate the cavity, plus bring my insulation behind my California corner and insulate this whole area as normal. So this allows you to retain your R value, your energy efficiency, yet still give you your member inside for your interior finishes. What I'm going to cover today is framing up walls whenever you have doors or windows in them. First things first, let Sam get his feet wet, get back into the swing of things, and go ahead and build a couple of these walls before I start showing and telling, talking and walking and preaching or teaching to you guys. I have two wall sections here I want to build. First one is 12 feet wide. The second is an 8-foot wide wall, and each of these have one window inside of them. As I get all of my boards laid out here, I have a normal top and bottom plate, I have normal wall studs, and for the most part, this is very similar to how we framed up our blank walls. I have my studs spaced on 16-inch on center, with the exception of my king and jack studs and cripple studs. Those might be different to support the window, but otherwise 16-inch on center. And over here, since I'm at my outside wall, I will also be putting in a California corner. The windows that I purchased for my workshop build are fairly large. They are 4 feet tall and 3 feet wide. My walls in my shop are 8 feet tall, so I've decided to put the windows pretty much as high as possible. I'll be using a 2x6 as my header, and that is going to be attached right below the top plate and raised basically as tall as it can be within the wall. When you look at items such as doors and windows, you have the dimension and then the rough opening. The dimension is usually the slab or the window itself, what they advertise as a common size. But your rough opening, that is a dimension you want to pay attention to at this stage. Those are the dimensions you want to follow and frame out the opening for your window or door to go into your wall. Your rough opening dimensions will be listed on either your door or your window. Just look around for them. Sometimes it is in small text, or in the instance of my window, they'll show me my dimensions and tell me to add a certain amount for rough opening. So I want to take a second and talk about the header, how I choose to build them, and the reasons behind things you may see and may not know. So this is a 2x6. It's going to be installed this way in my wall. I have 2 of them so that it is doubled up, but the 2 together are only 3 inches thick, and my wall is 3.5 inches thick. Enter in a half sheet of plywood, scrap plywood. I'm just going to sandwich it in between these 2 in the middle, nail them together, and it will allow it to act as a spacer to make the dimensions of my header equal to the thickness of my wall. The plywood itself has no purpose in life other than to space the 2x6s apart and allow them to be flush with both sides of my wall. The plywood is not really acting as a structural member. All of the weight bearing and load transfer capabilities are being done by the 2x6s, so you're okay to use scrap if you want to. If you feel better making it solid, gluing it together, nailing it together, by all means do that. Do what you're comfortable with. But for me, this is what I've always used and I've never had any problems. Alright guys, let's talk about jack studs. Jack studs are the studs that go underneath your header and help hold the header up. They are critical. Sometimes, if you see people do walls incorrectly, it boils down to how they frame up their headers, and they don't usually put jack studs underneath. They feel like the nails or screws they use to attach the header is sufficient, and that's not right. So I have 2 wall studs here. I'm just going to remove the thickness of my 2x6 header, which is 5.5 inches. Go ahead and mark these, cut it off, and then I'll label these so I don't get them mixed up as my 2 jack studs. They will go to the right and the left and hold the header on each end. What I'm going to do next is sight down the length of my wall studs. I'm looking down this way, and I'm looking for something that's called crown, or I'm going to mark the crowns. Wall studs being made out of wood and being a natural material, none of them are straight. Most of them are crazy unstraight, but they also always have a bow or a crown. As I look down, I'm looking at the board to see which way it bows, and I want it to do this or put the crown on the top. The reason you do this is so that whenever you go to put your wall covering up, if there's crowns on all sides, the wall looks more uniform and your siding and interior covering attaches easier, looks better, and you have a more stable wall overall. You'll see some people take the time to look, mark, and lay them down. I generally just sight them as I go because I may forget, get jumbled up, and it just seems to be a workflow that works for me. But by all means, if this is new to you and you need to do your marks, definitely do that. Do whatever you need to stay organized, to stay consistent, and to keep things right. As far as fastening these studs to the top and bottom plates, I'm using my Paslode cordless framing nailer with 3-inch long galvanized ring shank nails. You can use screws if you want to, or just regular hand nail in your fasteners. The biggest thing to do is make sure, in this instance, we're working with 2x material, and it's 1.5 inches thick. You want your fasteners to be at least 3 inches long. That way they are long enough to go through the first member, go into the second, and secure everything good and tight. I believe I've covered everything to get us rocking and rolling, so I'm going to go ahead and get you guys over here at the corner. You can kind of watch me work. I'm going to start on one end of my top plate, line up my wall studs to my marks as I need to, and then fasten it with the nail gun, moving on down to the next as I go. When I get to the header, I like to place a header in the space, but not attach it just yet, and then move on to the next wall stud, in fact our king stud, and go ahead and pull it up tight so that the header's in place, spaced correctly, and I can just keep on going through the wall studs first. With my main wall studs in place, now is when I go back and fill in my jack stud. That way I can hammer it up against here and I don't mess up my king stud placement. So I'll do one side, then the other, and then I can go ahead and put in what are called Cripple studs. They're the little short ones that go from the bottom plate to the bottom of the window sill. Put those in place here with my reference lines, and then I'll attach these all through the bottom plate next. Last two things to do is to go ahead and build my header here and attach it to where it needs to go, and then add the bottom board, framing member, seal plate, I forget what it's called, but the bottom framing member for the bottom of the window, it gets attached in place and also attached to those Cripple studs. Then we're done. As you guys saw there, framing up a doorway is very similar to a window, with the exception that you don't have your bottom board and your Cripple studs. Depending on your wall height though, you may have tiny little wall studs to put above your header between it and your top plate, and if so, as you can see, they're little ones, and you just put them in place, space them on your 16-inch on center with your wall. That way your wall covering lines up on its joints, and you're good to go. With this last wall done, this is also a big milestone of having 6 wall sections done, framed up, and now it's time to raise them. This will be the 3 wall sections for both 32-foot length sides of my workshop, and this is awesome. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. If you got any questions or comments about framing up walls when adding in windows or doors, feel free to leave a comment down below. I'll try and help you out as best I can. Otherwise, take care, and I'll see you guys next time building the workshop.